Good morning, everybody. Welcome to your Level Up 90-minute class today. We are so happy to see you all. We're just going to wait a couple minutes while everybody else joins in. Just wanted to encourage you guys as we're waiting to make sure that if you haven't made friends with your partner that we hooked you up with in course one, your nonprofit partner, or if you see other like-minded organizations in this cohort that you're like, gosh, I just want to chat with them, let me know. I'm happy to make that connection. I think that's one of the most critical parts of learning together is peer-to-peer sharing and building relationships. So if you need any of those connections, let me know. I'll also just mention that for year two, we did build in even more peer-to-peer learning and sharing opportunities. So you can look forward to that as well. All right, looks like we've got a good group in here today. I'm going to go ahead and just mention a couple things that are announcements, and then we'll turn it over to Michael to jump into the materials. So first and foremost, thank you. This is our second to last live class that we're having. The next class is May 14th, and we really, really appreciate y'all joining us in real time so we can have that valuable discussion. The second thing I'll mention is that I did invite all Level Up nonprofit admins to a webinar tomorrow, specifically on best practices for website forms, as well as how to use the embeddable form. That's something that everybody will get in year two, the embeddable form. And so we want to make sure you feel prepared. And the last thing I'll just quickly mention is that right now applications are open, and we want everybody from year one that can and has the ability to participate in year two. We've learned so much from you, we've engaged so much from you, and we're tracking your progress and growth. And so we want to continue that. So please make sure that you are applying. It's a really short form. You're in as long as you fill out the form. So I just wanted to encourage you to please go ahead and do that this week, because those forms close April 19th at 5 p.m. All right. That's all for the announcements. I'm going to hand it over to Michael so we can jump into this exciting topic for today. All right, go ahead, Michael, take us away.
Thank you so much, Jordan, and good morning, everybody. It's such a pleasure to be with all of you again today. And we were just talking before we got on air between Jordan and Elizabeth, just how busy it seems in the nonprofit world these days. In the other part of my real world job, I have 7 nonprofit clients, and they are all very busy with organizing events, fundraising appeals, local activities, advocacy campaigns. So I know just what a busy time the spring can be. So just feeling it in the community. So I think this is a good time really to be talking about fundraising strategies for growth. I know that a lot of folks organize fundraising appeals around this time and events, and so just a great time to be touching base on this topic. Also want to recognize and thank everybody for all the emails and newsletters that you've all been sending out. As you think I've mentioned a few times, I'm subscribed to all of your email lists, and I also follow each and every one of you on several social media channels. So it's been super fun to watch your various events, activities, things that you're organizing, upcoming concerts, and everything else. So thank you for all that you do, and keeps me inspired, as well as wanting to keep bringing you strategies to help you think through how to keep growing, how to keep doing this fundraising and connecting with folks in your community. So today we're going to cover in our 90-minute time 4 topics. They're kind of interlocking topics, but I think they're organized in a way that'll help you think through how to keep growing your fundraising work. One, we're going to dig again into audience segmentation. It's such an important area for us to be thinking about. So we're going to start there. We're going to talk about donor retention, one of the most important parts of building a strong fundraising program that will last for the long term. We'll talk about cultivating high or higher level donors, moving people sort of up the funnels of engagement. And then we will end with talking about cultivating business partners. So I think we're covering lots of ground there. As always, we have our chat room, which is open. So many of you were so verbose in the chat room for the last few months. So keep that coming with any comments. We'll be asking you occasional questions in there. And Jordan, thank you. You're going to be continuing to post links and resources in the chat room, which I know is also really helpful for folks. And then of course at the end, there's always time for Q&A, etc. So there we go. That's my basic intro here. And let me see if I can get my slides moving a little bit. Usual housekeeping, we're being recorded, and then all the support links. So that's our usual. Great. The Learning Lab, which is the companion to this one, is going to be on the 23rd, so in 2 weeks. And as always, we're going to be looking for opportunities to call on a few of you to talk about your experiences. So we may look in the chat room for that, but also you should feel free to suggest something you want us to be talking about. And we love to profile you. We love to use you as case studies, give you a voice, and to come on air with us and to share with the rest of the cohort. So that's a good reminder there. And then also, because we're towards the end of our course here, we have one final live class on May 14, and we're calling this the You Design the Class session. So in other words, we're looking for your suggestions for topics or any specific questions, related specifically to your organization. You have a burning issue that you want to talk through with the group. You have something that's come up. It can be really about anything that we've covered in the last few months. It can be fundraising, of course. It can be email registration. It can be something nerdy about your website. It can be something related to the Colorado Gives website itself, maybe something kind of technical. So we're open to whatever works for you. So we're just going to keep reminding you about this May 14 opportunity. And hopefully we'll have a fun final live class on Tuesday, May 14. Great. Okay. Yep. Thanks for the post in the chat. I'm just going to keep an eye on those because it gives me a sense of the pulse here. So thank you all. So why don't we dive into our first topic, which is audience segmentation. And this was actually a good, as we were thinking about this is a good reminder that April is actually known as National Volunteer Month, which I knew that because I have been bombarded with this kind of stuff. I know that there's lots of volunteer months that also occur in certain states, but there's actually a national one. And so it's super fun to see this. And so this is, if you haven't taken advantage of this, I would call it a holiday, but sort of this kind of event, this is a great time to work with this audience group that you work with. I mean, you can, of course, many of you have volunteers as part of your team, this is a perfect time to thank them for volunteering. You can also profile your volunteers. You can literally tell their stories. I mean, I think that some of the most interesting individuals that come in and out of nonprofit organizations are in fact volunteers. These are people who work for you often without any financial remuneration, and are just, they want to get engaged, they want to make a difference. And often if you can find the right thing that really gets them involved in your mission, you can really find some incredible people. So profiling them, telling them stories is something that's a really good feel-good thing that volunteers often really appreciate. And of course, this is the perfect month to be recruiting more volunteers. So by combining all those together, hopefully it creates a good, some good vibrations in your community so that you can keep those volunteers engaged. And of course, the connection between volunteering and fundraising is extremely strong, as many of you know well. In other words, volunteers are often one of the biggest groups that becomes donors and make financial gifts, and also in reverse. There's a lot of synergy between volunteering and donating and fundraising. And so it's really an important group, an important segment, an important audience to be aware of. So, being able to tag or record your volunteers carefully in your databases, in your CRM systems, or your Excel spreadsheets, or however you'd like to do this, or your filing cabinets, Rolodexes. Does anybody use those anymore? Just however you're doing that is really, and I have no doubt that many of you are doing that. So I know you have good appreciation for that. So we have a couple of, some of you may remember this slide from a month or so ago, and we wanted to kind of bring it back as we talk about audiences, and talk a little bit about like what is an audience? Sort of like, where do audiences come from? How do you make an audience? Sometimes you call them a segment, sometimes you call them an audience, and this is something that for fundraising is super important, because we want to be able to group people together so that we can talk to them in the right way. We also want to figure out, like, how they came in the door, what their interests are. And so if you look in this left column under segmentation type, I just wanted us to think about the different ways that we kind of create audience. How do we create the audience? So as you can see here, we have these like 5 different types, like so they can come in through sort of like a data source. In other words, like a door that they came in, they can come in through some kind of action they took. They can come in through some kind of a donation level, by location, or even proximity to your mission. So I just want to take a moment just to look this through, because it's a very interesting way to think about audiences. And also, by understanding the type of, the way that they sort of came in through the door, it helps us think about then how to leverage that in your fundraising strategy for growth. So let's take the first one. When we talk about a segmentation type by data source, we mean, like, maybe they signed up on your website, maybe they signed a clipboard that you had in an event, and oftentimes this is a whole kind of category of the way that we get names on our list. I have a lot of organizations that I work with that are like at farmers markets, school events, that they're always out in the community, they're always signing people up, and so they're very careful when they put these names in the database, just to check that little box that says, yeah, these people came in through the farmers market, these people came in through the school event, these people came in through the door knocking that we did in this community. And so these types of people, which are very general in nature, and oftentimes are like the largest group that's on your file, these are folks from a fundraising strategy perspective are just going to be the perfect group to do general cultivation with. You can also include them in just any of your general annual fundraising events. So this is a great general group to think about. That's why it's sort of here at the top of the list. Another type of an action, this means like you might have signed people up because you were, maybe your organization does a certain kind of activity, like some advocacy event, or something that's very specific in the community, maybe something that you're doing on a repeat basis. And I think especially like if they're coming to an event, I know several of you do music events and concerts and all that stuff, and I think this is a very useful group for us to think about as fundraising. If they bought an event, we could offer them more events. If they came to a music concert, maybe they want to come again. So because we actually know something very specific about them, about their interests, and so this group is actually sort of ripe in terms of being able to do more fundraising and cultivation. I mean, you can put them in your annual fund solicitations. Often folks like this that are coming to your events over and over are perfect to become monthly donors. The third type of segmentation type is if you literally have if you know something very special about their interests, or if you know something that they've given to before in the past, like an appeal that you've done, or if they even have like a pattern of giving. Sometimes we see people that, they only give at year end, or these people only give in spring when we fundraise for that special thing. Or, these folks always come to our farmers markets or to our events, and, they're really interested in some element of our program. So again, these types of folks would be perfect for general cultivation, but also because you know their interest level, and to the extent that you can tag them and figure out their interest, even knowing like the level of gift that they have or the time when they do donations. Again, you can consider them as part of an audience and as a segment that you can work with. This one by location is super fun and always open to some interpretation, but obviously like where do they live? If you're an I mean, obviously all of you are based in this, across the state of Colorado, but if you're the type of organization that is organized regionally and geographically, how can you leverage that? So knowing, of course, their city and zip code is, of course, a great starting point for that. And I know we don't always have that information for people. So that's another reason why when we think about segmentation, just super important to think about like what kind of information we're gathering from people and how we're storing it. So if you were to take your whole database, couple thousand people, couple hundred people, sort it by city, sort it by zip code, sort it by clusters of city, it really gives you a lot of stuff to play around with, so that when you're doing a fundraising appeal, you want to raise money, and it's something that's based in a certain regional location, you can play around with that, and you play around with that in the messaging or in the subject line. And I've seen tons of people do this really effectively. And people, do like to support things that are local to them. And so I think that's another great thing. And then, finally, the other way to think of segmentation is sort of like how what do we call the proximity to the mission? Like, are they a board member? Are they a staff member? Are they a volunteer, as we talked about before? How close are they inside the organization? We sometimes think of donors as like, oh, they're all the way out there. They're sort of outside your organization. But sometimes the proximity can be closer to that. Maybe they're a former staff member. Maybe they're a former volunteer. Now, I know there's a lot of sensitivity about, fundraising from staff, and you want to be very respectful of sort of that, just, not putting pressure on staff members to donate to the organization. But frankly, I've seen some of the best donors can often be former staff members or former volunteers, former board members. So really thinking about these are sort of like ways to think about that engagement. Again, with this proximity, those type of people who are very, very close to you, they often you can ask these folks to really go the extra mile for you. They often will lean in a little bit more, whether it's making an extra donation, whether it's helping out at an event, maybe it's helping you spread the word about an appeal that you're doing. So these are folks that you can really kind of lean into a little bit more. Okay, I'm just going to pause there. So there's an overview then of really this thought of like, how can you segment your audiences based on these criteria. I'm going to take a little sip of water and just take a quick little peek into the chat room. Super. That's great. Good. I want to talk also about another type of segmentation and a way to think about this, specifically related to your existing donors, and a couple of other ways to think about this. In other words, depending on the kind of donor that they are on your file, these are just some more ideas about how you can like leverage and work with that relationship. So for example, and these are sort of stacked slightly in order. The monthly donor, often we consider this to be some of our most valuable donors on our file. These are people who've made basically a long-term commitment to be a supporter of yours. These are folks we want to be doing active cultivation with, right? We want to be thanking them on a regular basis. We want to be acknowledging them as a monthly donor. And then always remember, monthly donors, often give at higher amounts. Sometimes they'll say, yeah, I want to increase my monthly gift, or I want to make an extra one-time gift. Even though monthly donors are giving every single month, often monthly donors make an extra gift at year end. That's a pattern we see frequently. So again, it gives us some ways of thinking about how to work with them. Recent small donors, this is often another really large part of your donor file. Again, these are folks who want to be doing active cultivation with. These are folks, obviously, that we want to ask them to give again and again. I mean, typically when you have an annual fund, you're asking your existing small donors to give again and again. Not everyone will do that, but part of the commitment in the relationship is that they support you and you ask them for support for the projects that are coming up and that are going to make a difference for them. Also, when you have a donor, a small-ish donor that makes repeated small gifts, this is also a great trigger to invite someone to become a monthly donor. Like, look, you made a $50 gift here, a $25 gift here, a $75 gift here. Hey, why don't you become a $40 monthly donor or a $25 monthly donor and just make, let's take this relationship up to the next level. And oftentimes, that's how a lot of monthly donors get added to a file, is that you're able to see people who are making repeated small gifts. And so that can be a natural way to invite them in. Also, folks that are making repeated small gifts are also great folks to invite to help you to do like a peer-to-peer campaign, a crowdfund campaign. Maybe you're doing something, this spring, you need people to be on, maybe it's on Facebook, or maybe it's on another channel, or using your Colorado Gives page, help you promote a campaign that you're doing. So often these small donors are going to be some of your closest allies when you're doing these campaigns. If you have folks that are what I call emergency donors, you had an urgent campaign that you were doing, maybe you had a fire at one of your storage facilities, or one of your vehicles was stolen or broken into and you need to repair it. So just examples like that. Folks that leaned in with you and helped you out like this, these are folks that you want to be doing active cultivation. These are people who are paying attention to what you're doing. I mean, if you had an emergency and you had something urgent and you reached out and a whole group of donors responded to you, those are a great group of folks to pay attention to. Maybe tag them as like, these people responded to us in the urgency. Again, great folks to ask them to give again, to lean in with you. Of course, many of you get large gifts from your donors. Somewhat self-evident, but basically, oftentimes it's a good idea to meet with folks like that to deepen the engagement. Tell me about your interests. What moved you to make the gift? Tell us like the path that brought you here. And often folks that are recent large donors should be put into your postal mail communication streams, assuming you have one. But I know that many of you do. But folks like that are often, happy to receive things in the mail, whether it's a quarterly newsletter or whether it's a special letter from the executive director or from your board to tell them about something that's coming up, or an appeal. So folks that are the larger donors, just really important to deepen the communication. Lapsed donors are also a unique group. They obviously have made it a commitment for you in the past. They've lapsed, probably not out of spite, but usually out of, they're very busy people. They moved on to other things. Maybe they've forgotten a little bit about you because there's just a lot of things going on in the community. I would say you want to keep these folks on your file. Active cultivation means send them a newsletter. Just keep connected with them. Lapsed donors, do have, some of them will have a tendency to come back on the file as donors. Some of them will reactivate, so to speak. So it's important to keep posted there. And then the final group, the peer-to-peer donor. We often think of peer-to-peer donors as like, they saw their friend posted something on, Instagram, Facebook, something like that, or maybe they got an email through an email chain. They're like, sure, I'll pitch in $5. Peer-to-peer donors are often smaller dollar donors, but these are folks who maybe were connected to you through a friend, through a relative, through a coworker, through a neighbor. It's just super important to be just active cultivation. Send them a newsletter, send them an invite to your upcoming event. Ask them to give again. If they were a $5 donor, ask them to give $5 again, ask them to give $25. See sort of what level kind of interest them. So these are I'll pause there and pass it over to Jordan in just a moment, but just want to say, these are all the different ways that you can that you can segment your donors for cultivation and fundraising. These are probably not the only ways that you can do this, but ways that that I've seen most commonly used in the community. And and I also invite you all to think a little bit like maybe there's other ways that you like to segment your donors as well. I mean, these are the ones that I see most commonly when I work in the community. But oftentimes I'm surprised when people say, well, we do a gala every year. And some people, that's the only way they connect with us. And so, well, that would be a gala donor, right? So sometimes you have very unique ways of segmenting your donors. So again, hopefully I've inspired you to think about how to approach this. Okay, I'm going to go to the next screen and pass it over for Jordan for a few minutes.
Thank you. And I'm actually going to ask you, could you move back a screen? I just wanted to mention one or two things relative to the Colorado Gives platform and how that might help segmentation wise. Thank you. Yeah, I echo what Michael is saying. This is the most common ways to segment your donors, but that doesn't mean it's the only way. And so we'll be asking you here in a couple slides to share what you guys are doing, what's working for you, what's not working for you, because we want to hear what's resonating with donors in your network. So I just wanted to mention on this slide, when we talk about monthly donors, I wanted to remind you that specifically in the Colorado Gives platform, unlike all the other donation transaction platforms, they can log in as a donor and they can update their monthly recurring gift. So it empowers the donor through the Colorado Gives platform to really take hold of their monthly gift, increase it, decrease it, adjust it, add a new one. And so I just wanted to remind you that we have a full-time customer support team and donors are empowered to log in and make updates to the recurring gifts themselves. And so that should be included in your messaging where appropriate. I just also wanted to mention around small donors, again, 100% agree with Michael that if you can identify even a small group, even 5 or 10 folks that are going to be great peer-to-peer fundraisers. So creating that individual page and raising funds on your behalf, activate them, because my personal experience with peer-to-peer fundraising is that typically I can give $100 or $200. So I'm a small donor. When I created a fundraiser page last year for Colorado Gives, I sent out 2 emails and I raised $900 from a close-knit group of friends and family. And so not only are those friends and family now exposed to your mission, but we're tripling the amount of money that you are raising for your campaign. So just wanted to reinforce that for all of your different campaigns, including Colorado Gives Day and other events, there may be a small group of warriors who are telling their story, who love your nonprofit so fiercely that they can be peer-to-peer fundraisers. I wanted to talk just briefly about emergency donors, because we at Colorado Gives Foundation have had to act on behalf of statewide emergencies, unfortunately, fires, mass shootings. And what we found with those particular donors when they're activated is typically they are activated because of the extreme urgency in your messaging, but they typically don't know that much else about your programs if they're a new donor. And so I would just ask, if you're doing an emergency appeal, to make sure that you're following up that appeal to expose them to your other programs and start to bring them into the fold. Let them know that it's not all an emergency, and that that will hopefully allow them to become more consistent donors. And last thing I'll say here is we're doing this as well with major or larger donors related to the foundation, not your major donors on Colorado Gives. We as the foundation are sending personalized notes, both email and physical, and also leaving voicemails. And so I second this. If you can, and there's some great tools out there, you have the capacity to do more for your major donors. We saw some great results when we engaged with them more in 2023, and we expect that that'll have some great results for 2024 donations. All right, sorry, I just wanted to mention those couple things. A lot of learnings from us at the foundation. All righty. So I wanted to also just talk about your built-in nonprofit audiences. So oftentimes when I'm meeting with nonprofits one-on-one, this is where I like to start because you know your audience is best. You know their source, where they're coming from, maybe what they respond to, or if you don't know what they like to respond to, hopefully Level Up has encouraged you to start testing and figuring out what makes the most sense for your donors. But let's go through some audience types that are already built in. So you don't have to cultivate new folks. There's a lot of folks within your current network. So the first is board members, volunteers, nonprofit employees. So what I like to do with this group of folks, because they are the closest to your mission, is identifying different strengths. So maybe Susie is really good at finance, but she should not be on the phone talking to major donors. She's a board member, so you can assign her a specific task related to that campaign. Bring these folks into the campaign that you are running because they are your mouthpieces, they are your volunteers, and they are your cheerleaders that are going to help you have a more successful online fundraising campaign. They also might be the ones that are telling a personal impact story about why they joined the board to compel their friends and family to give. So some suggestions around this group of folks and how you might activate them. Schedule time at your next board meeting. It works. 15 minutes, let's set up your fundraiser page for the May event, and that's all. Everybody can collectively do it together. It's out of the way. You can answer any questions. We find that this is the most successful way to get board members and volunteers to set up fundraiser pages or just be aware of the action that you need them to take to spread the word. Of course, these folks can also be peer-to-peer fundraisers, and volunteers specifically, I think, are great peer-to-peer fundraisers because you know already they prefer to give their time. They prefer to donate their time, not their money. And so they would be a great group to activate. And then last thing I'll say here is when you're thinking about employees and how to get them excited about the next fundraising campaign that's happening, oftentimes employees can thrive with incentives and friendly competition. And so we have pages, of course, with leaderboards. So your employees can have a friendly competition against each other. That really resonates online. And then if you have any incentives that you can, share with your employees, hey, whoever makes it to $1,000 for this campaign gets X. It's a great way to bring them into the loop. So fundraising isn't over here in a silo, fundraising by themselves. Everybody's a part of it. All right, for-profit partners. So this can look like businesses, partners, maybe it's suppliers. Maybe you work with hospitals and there's a lot of suppliers that you help manage relationships with. All of these folks cannot write checks. Like we just know that not every business is going to write you a $10,000 check every year to be, your personal sponsor. But that doesn't mean that they can't be your champion and cheerleader for different campaigns happening. And typically we're doing that through workplace giving pages, which I'll talk a little bit more about. When you're considering for-profit partners, this would be special cultivation, right? A specific message, specific value propositions about why they should be helping you raise money for this campaign and how it can make them be both a better partner and be more philanthropic to their networks. In-network partners and influencers. I think this is a group that's sometimes overlooked. And so who does your board know? Who is a local community leader that can help spread the word? Are there local media outlets that can provide in-kind advertisements? Maybe you're partnering with a business to share the cost of PR around this campaign that's happening. So just think creatively about who else is in your network that you might activate that might not be just your board members. And then last thing I'll say here, last but certainly I think most important, program and service recipients. And that could mean graduates of your program or alumni, and it also means their friends and family. So this is obviously a sensitive segment. They're the folks that are receiving your services. So likely they're not going to be the big major donors. But that doesn't mean that they can't be activated, and that doesn't mean that they don't have a story to tell. And so help these individuals that have gone through your program or received your services, tell their story. Help them to communicate their impact and let them see themselves in your mission when you're communicating to them in their stories and appeals. So use this group both for your fundraising and activate them to fundraise on your behalf when and where it's appropriate. Again, that might not be everybody in this group, but even if it's a small handful of 5 or 10 fundraisers, that can be super impactful to your overall success of your organization. I also want to encourage you guys, collect quotes, stories from these folks. Of course, ask them to peer-to-peer fundraise. Allow alumni, if that's relevant to your campaign, to have a fundraiser page for their year. Maybe they graduated in 2021. Create a fundraiser page for them and say, hey, alumni, this is your fundraiser page for our May event. Ask friends and family to donate to this thing that you graduated from that provided so much value. So just some ideas on how you can activate these different audiences that likely you already have in some shape or form within your network. All righty. Let me take a quick peek at the chat. Anything question-wise that I can answer?
There's a question from Heather about making phone number fields mandatory. It's such a great question. Yeah. So Heather, yes, there is the ability in the donation checkout flow to make, those questions required. What we are seeing though, however, is that there's less conversion when you require the donation or the donor's phone number. And that's because not all folks are comfortable sharing the phone number. So I would say if you can keep it not required, that is our suggestion. If you do need to require it, if it is imperative to, your work, your follow-up, your engagement with them, I would just be really clear in the question that you put in the donation form to let folks know that you respect them and how you might use that phone number in the future. I think that if you can insert that language in the question, and if you require it, it might help ease some of the folks' concern. So that would be my suggestion. Good question. Thank you. I'll put myself on mute and pass it back to you. Yeah, and I'll just echo that, about capturing or asking people for their phone numbers, that, as nonprofits, we're kind of required to disclose to people how we're using their information. And so, there's been a couple of laws across the United States, and some are also statewide. I'm based in California. We have another set of rules around this. So just be mindful that if you're gathering people's, mailing addresses or emails during a donation, you should be disclosing somewhere on your website, especially, what you do with the information. One thing that you often have to do, this is why we require people to sort of check that little box that says, yes, I consent to receiving email communications from this organization. So that's a good example. And if someone provides their phone number, they might reasonably ask themselves, am I going to get text messages? Am I going to get a phone call with a solicitation? So it's okay to be open with people about it. In fact, some people would love to get your text messages. And that is, in fact, one of the advanced features that's available at Colorado Gives. So there's no reason why you should turn away from it. But just be aware that for some folks, that might be a turn off. And for other people, it might be a turn on. So just try to be aware of that. We just threw up this slide here, also just to trigger some of your, just some of your thinking about segmentation. Again, if you've got other ways that you're segmenting your file, that you're segmenting your donors, hopefully you can use this to think a little bit about how you've done that or how you could do it. We know also that segmentation also requires some discipline in your data management, right? You can't just have like an invisible segment of people. You obviously have to be able to, in your database, actually check a little box next to them, tag them, put the source code next to them, be able to, run a report, run a search to be able to find, here's all the people who have signed any of our clipboards, or here's all the people who are the monthly donors. So it does take discipline to create segments, but I think once you've adopted that discipline, I think it'll return just such great value to you in the future. So okay, we're going to keep. Oh, and Jordan, did you want to make a comment? You look like you're just about to.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask on that last slide, if anybody had, some lessons learned, where you're stuck with segmentation. Maybe you had a really successful donor email for major donors that just occurred. If you want to share any of that information, go ahead and share it in the chat. We'll pop it in here so that it's also able to be referenced in the presentation. So we encourage you, if something really great or a lesson learned happened recently with your email marketing and segmentation, we encourage you to share it. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. That's great. So we're going to move on to topic number 2, which is the theme of donor retention. And I think, Jordan, you were just going to spend a minute or so chatting about the Colorado Gives platform. Did you want me to stop the screen share because you wanted to do the other thing, or why don't you prompt me when you need that?
Yeah, I think I can go ahead and yes, stop the screen share and share my screen. Thank you. So I wanted to make sure that everybody knew that before we talked about donor retention and all that stuff, that you guys have a retention report built in to Colorado Gives. And so I'm on an example page, so no data here. I didn't want to expose anybody's, donor data in this example. But if you're logging in as an admin, you're going down to reports. You can see there's a number of great reports here, one of which is retention. And so the idea here is that you can see everybody you retained, either month by month, year by year, custom date range, and you can see not retained. You can then download real quick that report of those folks who elapsed or not retained, send them an email, give them a call. And so this becomes a really quick way for you to see, at least for the donors that are coming through Colorado Gives or gave to Colorado Gives Day in 2023, how they're performing, if they've come back, and what actions you can take to help to cultivate donor retention. So please, I urge you, play around with this list, download it, see what you can do with this data and what it might indicate for your nonprofit. All right, just wanted to mention that. Any questions before I unshare my screen on the donor retentions report? Excuse me, yeah, donor retention report. All right, thanks, Michael.
Okay, so I need to, hang on, just switch back to the right screen over here. Oh. All right, gotta reorganize my screens here just to make this happen correctly. See if this works now. Am I on full screen mode? Okay, thank you. Little disorienting to go in and out of the screen share. Thank you for that, Jordan. That was really helpful. I mean, it's great that these tools are already built in to the Colorado Gives platform. I think it's especially helpful, after you've done a big seasonal campaign. So I know that a lot of people in the first quarter of the calendar year, January, February, etc., will do one of these reports, and to see, okay, how did we do during our year end? How many people did we retain? How many people did we lose? And it gives you that snapshot. And so just always, so as we continue this conversation about donor retention, and sometimes the other word that gets used is stewardship, is we just want to emphasize and to encourage you to make these efforts, investing in retention. So in this section, we really want to talk about that. And really the core metric that we often work with, by the way, is that existing donors, when we retain them, give 3 times more than when they stay with you. So in other words, your long-term value of these donors is just always something that you have to keep in mind. So retaining a donor is really your best investment in your fundraising growth over time. And so the more you can engage with existing donors, work with them throughout the year, the more long-term value you will get out of those kind of folks. And we were just thinking a little bit about the kinds of ways that you can speak with your donors, the way that you can communicate with them, to keep them excited about your program, to keep them engaged year after year, season after season. We were thinking about calls to action that we think can be useful in keeping your donors excited about your programs as time goes by. And I think it can be a challenge to sort of keep them constantly engaged and interested. And so here's a couple of example calls to action. A few of these things I took literally right out of a couple of my emails themselves, but phrases like, together we're making an impact. We can't do this without you. Help us do more in 2024, 2025. Let's get this project launched was an example I saw from a client of mine that they were doing some kind of a building project. We need your input, volunteer. So all of these are ways really that we can sort of steward and cultivate the donor so that they feel this constant engagement with you. Another great example that I wanted to share here from our friends who do this work in Colorado over here on the right. So they've got they do this fantastic sort of numbers review of how they did through the previous year in distributing diaper supplies. I just love this, by the way. So kudos for this work. And just a great example, I think, for a donor to see this and for them to be like, wow, the gifts that I make, the support that I provide is delivering this kind of value. And this kind of feedback is just so important. Sometimes people put these together in impact reports and annual reports and all that kind of stuff. But you can do this all year round at any time. And it provides this feedback, back to the donor to reinforce how their support makes the difference in the community. And you can see at the top, here's what we accomplished together in 2023. Love that phrasing. It's not just here's what we did. It's like here what we accomplished together. Great word, together. And so there's really a lot of strength there. And you can see, you made 2023 our biggest year. You provided. So all of this, also this use of language here, which is really nice. It's the you, not just the we. And so really bringing the donor into this celebration of success, but also not just celebrating success, but saying, and there's more work we need to do. Help us expand our services. Help us do more. Help us go further. And so that's where we're getting donors excited really all year round. So quick comment here. If you have some of your own favorite calls to action, please share those in the Zoom chat. Jordan added this one here, and I love it, which is just a great, it's called The Art of the Call to Action in Email Fundraising. And I have to say the call to action is one of these sort of fundraising sort of tradecraft things that is just sort of the subject of endless fascination. If any of you have been on the receiving end of fundraising appeals from political candidates during any season, whether they're local, statewide, or national, you know that it's really like an art form to get people to open their email or just how to phrase the call to action, how to create the urgency, how to get people excited, how to get people angry. I mean, there are just so many layers of it. And so this is a great article that we recommend, and the link will be live when you get the deck. So just wanted to highlight that one for you. A few more themes also around donor retention. I think Jordan was alluding to these before, but just telling the stories of the people that we help through our work is just such an important way to inspire the donors. So these are just a couple of sort of things that I snapped out of my emails and a couple of annual reports. These are like real people here. They're not stock pictures or stock photos. These are actual people in the community. Sometimes you can name them by their actual names. This is Christina Para Hernandez. This is Kelly McManus. Sorry, since it's a little small on my screen. And these pictures on the right are actual people. We can't name them because they're children, but they're actual real people in the school. These are the real people. These are real stories. And even just like talking about things that are happening right now. This is happening this weekend. It's coming up. Just creating that closeness and recency between the donor and the people that are being helped in the community is such an important part of keeping donors excited about how their work is making an impact. And I'll just say, I mean, since I get all of your emails, I know that so many of you are doing such a great job at doing this and bringing in pictures, bringing in stories, testimonials, case studies. So keep doing that, because that really moves the needle for donors, is seeing and reading and feeling that impact that's happening in the community. And it doesn't mean that you have to put this in with a fundraising appeal. This is just the stuff that you're doing all year round to keep that in front of your supporters. A few other ways to think about also donor engagement. This example in the middle, which is from one of the organizations in the cohort, the Historic Route County, they do a great job talking about projects that they're working on. And I remember reading this when I got it in the email, and I thought, gosh, this is very detailed. This is very granular. It's a little overwhelming. But then as I reread it again, it's like, if someone is a fan of this work and they're really interested, they are probably reading this and just completely nerding out and getting so excited about the work that this organization is doing. And I just love this. You can visit the website to learn more. So I just think even helping your donors and supporters to see the work that you're doing at this kind of granular level can be so helpful in getting people invested in the work. So I think this was just a great example. And many of you have done this. And really, the message that you're sending is, you're funding this work. You're helping to make these changes happen. And sometimes, this is how this work gets done in the details of all this stuff. And thank you for being there to help support us. This other example on the right is just also another way that we sometimes see this kind of manifested when we do engagements with donors. This is from, I think, a donor. I think it was like an impact report from the Community Action Room, which is a group that I work with in Marin County, California. And many of you do this, where you offer lists of giving levels and you match them up with activities or things that this giving level allows you to do in the community. This is a common technique, really, for getting donors to think about what's their giving level, how much they want to deepen their work. You can see this one ranges pretty significantly between $25 and $3,000. I've seen bigger ranges. I've seen smaller ranges. But again, it provides a really good way for donors to to imagine and think about, like, what level of engagement do I want to make? And another way to sort of flip that around, another way to think about it a little bit, is really this thought of, like, really asking and engaging with donors to learn, like, what are their passions? What are their interests in your work? Like, so don't just say, these are the 10 ways you can get involved, and that's it. A lot of donor engagement is about learning what your donors' interests are. How can they help grow something that you haven't done before? How can they expand your range? Maybe their giving level is at the $10,000 level. Maybe it's at the $50,000 level. And maybe it's not on this list yet. So this is really an invitation for you to sort of have these conversations with folks about what level of commitment, are they comfortable with? What are they envisioning their commitment growing over time? There's a couple of quick examples here, by the way, from some of your web pages, some of your donation pages that are connected through the Colorado Gives site. And you as you can see here, when you have these versions of the page, you can tag your giving levels, You can also put descriptions of what those gifts will do. This is an example from the Colorado Coalition Against Sexual Assault. They go from $50,000 to $10,000. Again, not everybody is going to be able to give at the $10,000 level, but really what it allows people to do is also to learn about, you know, the work that you're doing in the community, what things cost, and for them to kind of envision where they might fit in. Our friends at Weed Cycle do the same thing. They range between $12 and $100, which I thought was a great range. And it's also very specific because the $12 level supplies 1 week of diapers for a child in need. I just think that's perfect. And if you're a person who's got only the $12, then you should go ahead and do that. Maybe you're like, maybe I can do $12 a month. So you can click on the monthly donation. So there's lots of ways to help the donor envision kind of where they fit in. So let me just see. I think I was going to pass this over to you, Jordan, for a couple of additional comments. Is that okay?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, so thank you. And I do think it's something, again, at the foundation, we are trying to figure out how are we collecting donor interest so that we can do exactly what we're preaching to you. Follow up with them, engage in the future, give them and serve them the content that they actually want. From, you know, a bird's eye view, I think we can say that, you know, we can update the donation form and we can either add a custom question, a suggested donation amounts, or both to that form to kind of indicate interest. I wanted to also mention that when we're thinking about interest, sometimes it's just the donation page that they're going through. So maybe they are specifically donating through a fundraiser page that you set up on Colorado Gives. That indicates their interest. And then the last thing that we are starting to explore is surveys and quizzes. So we want to obviously always be really sensitive to surveys and quizzes and not over surveying anybody. But it's also really important to get to know our donors, and oftentimes quizzes you can make really fun and engaging. So that is another way that you might be able to capture donor interest so you can serve them more specific content and call to actions in the future. Thanks, Michael. Just wanted to mention those couple things because we're thinking about them as well. Did want to talk just briefly about donor reactivation. I think we talk about lapsed donors, but we sometimes don't put numbers to what those lapsed donors really can do for us. And so I wanted to level set here because according to you know, fundraising professionals, it's only about 4% of lapsed donors that ever come back after they're gone. After you lose their donation, only about 4% ever come back. So if a donor stops giving, there's a very small chance that they will ever give again. And so again, just reaffirming what Michael said, that the majority of your focus should be on retention so that you don't lose folks. And there's also an element, of course, of cultivation to bring new folks in. The small recapture rate is really, you know, astonishing and only going down further. So I just wanted to level set here. I think it's still important, again, as Michael said, to engage these lapsed donors, to put them in your general communications, to maybe once or twice a year say, we miss you, come back, look at all these great things we're doing. But I also don't want anybody to be spending all their time on this small group of lapsed donors that may just be busy or have moved on. So just wanted to mention that, and I think there's one more slide here. And this was interesting to me. So if new donors only give once, nearly 70% of new donors only give once, that means you lose out on your investment from getting that donor in the door, right? And so again, just reaffirming the fact that nonprofits need to focus on ways to keep both new and existing donors coming back. And while reactivation can be a piece of the pie, it's definitely not a big piece. It's like an afternoon snack. And so I did, but I did link a full resource here that talks specifically about retention, ideas around reactivation. And so please do click on that.
This is so helpful to see these numbers, Jordan, and it's also a reminder that in fundraising that it is a numbers game,
Yeah, I
right? I
know.
mean, it's about relationships
It's
and it's
also
about
hearts and
engagement.
feeling
Yeah,
and impact.
exactly.
Yes, it is
But there
about
it
numbers.
tends to be also a numbers game, and it's so, there's always there's sort of the part that I dislike the most about fundraising is always to like, oh, I got to look at these numbers and figure out what's working, what's not working. But hopefully, the fact that it is so numbers and all about, it's a lot of data crunching, that doesn't discourage you from becoming great fundraisers, and always thinking that you're, at the heart, it's about inspiring people to give and to keep them engaged. Once again, we have our grid here. If you have any comments that you want to share in the chat, we'll get them put in here. What donor retention stories can you share with us? That would be great. I know there's lots of trial and error that goes along with it. Okay, we're going to keep moving forward as we've crossed the top of the hour. So I wanted to talk for this next section about cultivating high level donors, which I was rephrasing as higher level donors. I mean, I think high or higher, it's sort of different for every organization where we sort of set the level of what we mean by higher. For some folks, a higher level donor could be $100 and up, because a lot of their donors are in the double digit level. They're 25, they're $50. For some folks, it's $500 and up, etc. Maybe 1,000. So it's really, there's no right or wrong here, but really just wanted to say that, for many organizations, we obviously aspire to getting our donors to give at higher levels. It shows that, they're deepening their interest, they're deepening their engagement. So that's definitely something that we're always being mindful of when we do. This is why we do fundraising campaigns, whether we do them seasonally, whether we do them year end. We use their giving level as really one of the most important indicators of people's engagement. And so, we're not going to only use their giving level as a way to measure their engagement, but it's obviously a very important one because we are fundraisers and we're in the business of raising money. So we're not going to run away from that. And oftentimes organizations, create what are sometimes called sort of mid-level or higher level donor segments. I mean, there's plenty of organizations, and some of you know some of them. This is just an example on the right, by the way, from PETA, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. Their Vanguard Society is sort of fairly epic in that regard. They were actually one of the first organizations to try to do something like this. They had so many donors, and they wanted to get people to give more, and so they created the Vanguard Society, and then they created some benefits, and you get more access to the organization, you get to learn more, etc. And they really showed, I think, the way that there's so much that you can do with your donors to get them kind of more invested. And it's also a way to also encourage you to, you're not just taking people's money, you're also trying to understand what are their, why are they more interested, what kind of passion are they bringing to the cause. They want to do more work as a volunteer. Maybe they want to start a local project in their community. They want to franchise your work in another part of the state. Maybe they're just so invested in your work that they really want to make that financial investment. So when you move people into these higher levels of giving, it's also an indicator of that engagement that's changing, and that can be a really important way to connect with people. And you're really, in this last bullet point here, and it really is about thinking about, you don't just want them to be that 1-year donor, as Jordan was saying before. The 70% will only stay around for a year. You want to really nurture them for a much longer period of time. Maybe, for the next 5 years, you want to do these kinds of projects. And so getting people into those other levels becomes so important. And oftentimes the characteristics of sort of mid-level giving programs, often there'll be some benefits or some activities. You might be inviting people to some special events. You might invite folks to come into the office, meet the program staff, or come meet us in the field while we're doing an event. Come join us for the day. Come staff a booth with us. Come hang out with us as we go, visit this open space land, and we're going to be making an assessment of the wildlife situation here, or this this river watershed. Hey, we're doing a webinar briefing in a couple weeks. We'd like you to join it. We're going to have some of our program team that are going to be doing a briefing for supporters and organizers. Or hey, maybe we'll send you some direct emails, not just the newsletter, not just the fundraising appeal, but maybe a few times a year, because you're a higher level donor, you're going to get a direct email from one of our program directors or our executive director. And folks just love having that kind of closeness and relationship. And then another very commonly used technique is the advisory board. In other words, not the financial fiduciary board of directors, but just an advisory board where people can sort of come inside, hear about the work, advise. Maybe you're bringing someone on because they have a unique skill. Maybe they're a scientist. Maybe they're a lawyer. Maybe they're an accountant. Whatever their area of expertise is, or maybe they're just a committed citizen from a part of the state that you want to get them involved. So bring them on. So all of these are sort of these cultivation activities, and oftentimes can align with getting people to become higher level donors. And so these are all examples that you can use. And just a couple of thoughts again about sort of the trade craft of this. I mean, oftentimes the way to build a mid-level, we sometimes call them giving circles. Sorry, that language I think we changed earlier. But oftentimes when you have people who have recently become a donor, or frequently given, or given through multiple channels, so maybe they've given $100 in the spring, $100 in the fall, another $100. Maybe they're giving all over the place. Maybe they gave in the mail. Maybe they gave in an event. When you see these kinds of patterns of giving with people, these are often the tells that help you to identify people who would be perfect candidates to be invited to join a mid-level sort of giving community. I think this example over here on the right was from Earth Justice. Their mid-level program is called the Justice Partners, and it's for folks who give $1,000 and up. And they just have a terrific set of benefits, which I think are great. I mean, Earth Justice is mainly for lawyers that are doing work around the environment. They do these fantastic webinars. They invite people to join them out in the field in different parts of the country. They just do really a great job engaging folks. I am just quickly looking at the chat. Jordan, I see a message from Katie Nevin.
Yeah. When thinking about segmenting by giving level, how do monthly donors fit into these segments? That's a great question. Do you think about their giving level by the annual amount, or should we always think of them as a unique segment on their own? I'll just say my personal view is that recurring or monthly donors are their own segment. Whether you're talking to them as a giving circle or, as a vanguard, partner, depending on what you're calling your program, I do think we see them as separate. I do think they should be getting all of the general communications that are universal. But I think treating them special helps to maintain that. I also think that you can consider historically, if they have given a recurring gift for more than 1 year, I think you can consider their gift annually. Like if they've given for a year and they've given $500 total in 2023, celebrate that. But I just got an email the other day that also said, hey, we loved your donation in 2023. We see you, we used it. This is how we use it, but things are expensive. And so we'd love for you to do, instead of a $50 gift, $100 gift this year, recurring. So anyway, so there's just, I think, some finesse to how you leverage the monthly donors, but I do kind of see them as unique. So I'll stop talking and let Michael and his expertise lead the way on that question.
Well, totally agree with your comments, Jordan. And it depends a little bit, I would say, Katie, on also the size of the gift. I mean, if someone is a $10 monthly donor, I mean, we're thrilled to have their support, and you want to, be connecting with them. And we love all of the monthly donors because it shows a certain type of commitment. But if their monthly gift is $100 a month, and we see plenty of those, that's another level of commitment. And so in a way, it can help you reflect a little bit on, well, that person is clearly making a pretty large, even larger commitment. So, but I do think the more common scenario is you have lots of smaller monthly donors on your file, and it's a more common growing segment for a lot of organizations. So again, maybe you have a special quarterly newsletter for the monthly donors. When you also when you do your annual fund appeal, you want to make sure that you can segment that group and say something like, we so appreciate your monthly support to us every month, and we're reaching out to you this year because we're fundraising for very special projects, and we have a special match that we thought would interest you. So it's really, like Jordan said, in the finesse, really about how you communicate with those folks. But monthly donors do love to be recognized. They love to be heard and seen. So that's really an important piece of the puzzle. I'm a monthly donor maybe to maybe 3 organizations in my life. I take a lot of personal pride in doing that. My wife and I pick them together. And so, yeah, it means a lot to us as donors. And so it should also to you, I think, as the organization. So I think that's a great, not so fuzzy a question, Katie. That was good. Super important. A good one. Great. So I think I'm going to pass back to Jordan for this 4th topic.
Yeah. So we just wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about business partners. And certainly we are not going to cover all the ins and outs today in this session because there's so many different types of business partners or for-profit partners. But just be reassured that whatever we go through today is a teaser for what we're going to be training you related to Colorado Gives Day. So there will be some specific business-related trainings, resources in the toolkit. And so you should feel assured that for Colorado Gives Day this year, you will have even more resources to connect with businesses and help them fundraise on your behalf. But what we're talking about today is that cultivating businesses is hard. Let me go ahead and, sorry, I forgot to spotlight myself so you could see my face. So here are some facts that we at the foundation have learned, and this is through formal surveys that we've done with businesses in the Denver metro area. So we know that businesses, as I mentioned before, can't always cut you a check. They can't always cut you that $1,000, $5,000, $10,000 check. Maybe they don't have it in their budget. Maybe they don't have a clear plan for philanthropy, or maybe 10 other organizations also asked them, and they just don't have the budget this year. So that's just a fact that we know. The next thing is that many businesses do not have a philanthropic plan or strategy. And that's not because they're not good businesses. It's just because they haven't identified a person to specifically work on the philanthropic or charitable portion of their business, or they're just small and they're getting by and they're invested in the community. And they just, as people ask, if they can, they give back. And so, I just want to remind everybody that when you're approaching businesses, whether it's Coca-Cola or whether it's your local bakery down the street, not every business has a plan for how to give back to the community. And so it's our responsibility as the nonprofit to present them really tangible ideas for how they can partner and help spread the word. And the last thing here is they have built-in audiences. And so your business partners, we love them because they're donating space. Maybe they're donating printing, money for printing. Maybe they're highlighting you in their newsletter. Those are all really valuable. But specifically, businesses have their own employees. as well as their own social networks and audiences that you as a nonprofit partner can leverage. And so our suggestion related to coloradogives.org is that you consider helping your business to create a workplace giving page. And this is so that business can share that page with their employees, with their networks, in order to encourage folks to give back to your nonprofit. So this is great for a number of reasons. It's great because it allows businesses of all sizes. So it's not just Coca-Cola, it's not just the local bakery, but it's everybody in between that can be fundraisers on behalf of your nonprofit. And it sets them up to being publicly philanthropic without needing to necessarily have to put up significant funds for you that year. So they can be a fundraiser on your behalf, even if they don't have that budget to write that check. It also allows nonprofits to leverage current and new partners to drive new donors to their business. So by encouraging your business to be sharing your fundraiser or using a workplace giving page for your different campaigns, you are going to be exposed to new donors. So this is a cultivation tactic for you as well. It also increases employee engagement. So for the businesses themselves, this is great. They're looking more charitable. They have a plan. They're supporting nonprofits in the community in a really easy way with these online fundraising pages. It allows the employees and their audience to know the business has a workplace culture that's committed to social responsibility. And so these are just some of the many talking points that you can present to businesses as you're discussing where and how they're going to support you throughout the year. So a couple more thoughts. So we want you to be considering asking businesses to set up a workplace giving page for year-round donor cultivation. I'll just note that these workplace giving pages can highlight one or multiple nonprofits. And so a business doesn't have to feel like they're forced to only highlight your nonprofit organization. Maybe they have several that they support throughout the year. So another benefit to them as the business. Consider asking the business to allow a donation that is intended for your organization to be used as a matching grant. So maybe you know that bakery down the street gives you $2,000 every year. Wow, that's amazing. And maybe you're putting their logos in different places and thanking them. Instead of just using that $2,000 donation, we're asking you to set up a matching grant for your next online fundraising campaign. You don't have to pay through the system. You don't have to run that $2,000 through Colorado Gives, but we want you to set up that visual matching grant because we know matching grants drive excitement and more donation conversions. So just an idea there. If you're expecting a donation from a business, all you have to do is ask, hey, can we maximize this donation that you're about to give us and use it as a matching grant for the May campaign? So those are just some ways that you can really easily engage donors. And then the last thing I'll just remind you, which may make sense, but coordinate your communications, which can be hard with for-profit businesses because they have all their own agendas. But it's, I think, really important to get on the same page. Maybe this year they can't cut you a check. Maybe this year they can't create a workplace giving page, but gosh darn, they can put your campaign in their newsletter, they can reshare your posts on social. And so just give them different opportunities and levels to be a good business partner related to your online fundraising campaigns. And then I'll just mention that if you guys need help creating a workplace giving page, we have people that can do that. So we're happy to help. I wanted to open it up before we finish this section and just ask you guys. So I talked about that we are planning some specific webinar trainings on engaging businesses. We'll also have more resources in the toolkit for Colorado Gives Day this year, which feels far away, but it's not. And so I wanted to ask you guys, could you enter in chat? What do you need from us? What can we provide you? Templates, resources that might help you to better engage businesses new or currently in your network. So go ahead and enter that into the chat. I'll be taking that directly back to our marketing team. So please do provide your feedback. I also did want to just mention that on our workplace giving page, we do have 2 how-to videos already set up for you. So a business can come to this page and in 2 minutes, click some buttons, learn what they need to do, and get started. Now, that doesn't mean that we're not here to support and help. So please bring us into the loop if needed. All right, that's just a couple of things about how you might consider engaging businesses.
That's great. And thank you. I was seeing all kinds of comments in the chat. Susan Wertman, by the way, thank you very much for that example that you gave about how you've engaged with vendors. Sometimes they can't make a financial contribution, but they can help you purchase, discounted medical and dental supplies. And like you say, it ended up being worth $30,000 in terms of actual value. Heather Korth, you had a really provocative question about just this sort of the ethical issues around working with companies. And you sort of ask, we're always nervous about them wanting us to refer clients to them, endorse their business, etc. That's such a good topic. And definitely, I think that the way that I've seen that often addressed by organizations is that they'll come together as a staff and sort of put together their sort of like their principles for business collaborations or how they're going to approach that question. And so, in other words, like, these are the rules of the road. These are the benefits that we're going to offer a business. Maybe, we're going to like feature their brand, their name on some communications that we're doing. Maybe in social media, we'll include their logo, or if we have any print materials, we could do that. But there can also be, I think, sort of like red lines, like we're not going to have a link to like a sales page, or we're not going to hand over the whole list of our donors and email folks or we're not going to let this vendor email all of our constituents. So you can create, I think, boundaries in those relationships. On the other hand, there may be certain situations where you might in fact want to do something collaborative with a vendor if you thought that it was worthwhile. I think your examples were insurance companies and construction companies. So yeah, maybe those are the ones that sort of like make you a little bit nervous. But I could easily imagine like a retail company saying, we're going to offer 20% discount if you come to our store. And that might actually be something your supporters might really like. So it's really, sometimes you sort of have to sort of find like, where are the ethical boundaries that you don't want to cross or do want to cross. But I would encourage you as a staff and a team to sort of come up with those decisions inside, or maybe just decide on a case by case basis. But I think you always want to be respectful of your supporters' privacy. So handing over your email list or things like that can sometimes, of course, be a little bit of a bridge too far. So I hope that's helpful, Heather.
And I just wanted to, and we deal with this all the time at Colorado Gives as well. I would say definitely, as far as like insurance companies or construction companies, unless they're giving you the huge major gifts, it really shouldn't be, you shouldn't be sharing donor data. I think the alternative is, like Michael said, a collaborative webinar, collaborative email, where there's an interest form so your donors can raise their hand should they be interested in insurance and construction. And then the other thing I'll mention is for construction companies, for example, they're great for matching grants because there's a visual on your page with their logo, if you want, for that shows who is providing this matching grant. And then you get to talk about them in all your communications about, hey, this construction company is helping us with this matching grant. Check out more from them. So I think there's, again, finesse in how you manage your partners and also the different levels of engagement you present to them. It's definitely a work in progress. We at the foundation review it every year because every year we learn something about how our sponsors and how our business partners are relating to us, and how we can make both experiences, better and more valuable.
Terrific. And thanks everyone, Sarah, Kim, Kathy, Susan, and Kim, for your input on what would be helpful in some of these business resources. So thank you for all of those. I know we're almost at time. So just a reminder that we're doing our companion learning lab in 2 weeks. So as always, we're recruiting participants. As always, what I like to do is dig back through the chat and also look through also some of your email communications that have been coming my way. And we may be calling on a few of you to be short case studies on the 23rd, but definitely feel free to shout out to us. And then again, reminder, May 14, the final live class where you get to design the class. So again, we're looking for suggested topics, specific questions related to your organization. So don't hesitate to speak out about what your needs are about that. We might do, Jordan and Elizabeth, maybe we'll do a couple of emails out to the cohort, remind them to suggest topics there, so we can build that up for folks as a useful final class. And then once again, we're just reminding you, we still have some slots left for some one-on-one consultations with yours truly. So definitely drop me an email. Also, Jordan emailed all of you a couple days ago, so you can also hit reply on that as well, and get into on my schedule.
Kim, I'm looking at you. I see that you said you were stuck. So if anybody's stuck on anything, like she's creating a sponsorship packet, that's a great opportunity to have that one-on-one call with Michael, just to work through it and chat through it. Of course, I'm available too, but Michael and the Firefly team are marketing gurus, marketing experts, so they can certainly kind of dig in deep. Thank you all, Michael. Awesome. Thank you so much, Elizabeth, Michael, Firefly team, and of course, everybody participating. If you have any questions, always email me. I'm happy to respond and help. And just know that right now, applications are open for year 2. And I'm working on getting our resources page live again. So with all of the great videos and recordings. So just stand by, I'm working on it, and you should see that this week. I hope everybody has a wonderful day, week, and we can't wait to see you at the end of April. Have a good day, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.